Thank you all for logging in. For those of you who are just coming in and I have not had a chance to meet with you, my name is Dottie Summerfield Justy, and I have the pleasure of co-chairing the Small Business Council for the Greater Memphis Chamber. We're going to wait till a few more participants join us before we begin today's webinar with Valerie Morris Bearup and Adam Heitzman. And for those of you who say you don't have a video microphone on your screen, but you're here, thank you very much, John Warren. Today's presentation is in webinar mode, so you're not going to be able to see yourselves or your other participants. You're just going to be stuck with looking at Valerie, me, Patricia, and Adam today, and Catherine Gray. So you won't be able to see each other. So you can make all the faces you want and eat your lunch if you wish while we are here today. Because we are in this kind of mode for this trip. Thanks very much for the chat on that, John Warren. For those of you who are joining in, if you don't mind, put your name and your company in the chat so we can know that you're here and we'll be able to see that, and we'll welcome everyone as we can. This is our third to last meeting of the Small Business Council, as we have had a very jam-packed year. And we want to thank all of you. Many of you are here today that have been with us for every single meeting. And we can't thank you enough for your participation. I think when we started the Small Business Council meetings in early this year, we thought for sure we'd be back together again, face to face, but let's hope that we can do that either before the end of the year or 2022. It would be so nice to be in the room together. We all are looking forward to seeing each other face to face again.
You're absolutely right, Dottie. We really appreciate everybody for attending our events and giving us feedback, and anyone that is on this call. Just think about those things that you want to learn more about. Please reach out to Dottie or myself and let us know, because we want all of the programming to reflect what your needs are.
Which is why this year's programming has been followed through for those of you who were with us last year for the Prosper series. Out of that came the need to help our small businesses in so many ways. And you have asked for this information today on what's next in marketing, what we can do for our small businesses. Patricia, I'm going to turn it over to you, if you don't mind. And Thank you again, everyone, for being with us today.
All right. Thank you, Dottie. Well, each month, as Dottie was talking about all of the events that we've had, the programming, the purpose of our programming really is to arm our business leaders with information to take back to their company. So those events cannot happen, not be possible at all without our sponsor, Independent Bank. And today with us, we have Catherine Gray, who is the Senior VP of Marketing and Sales Development. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Patricia, and thank you, both you and Dottie, for all your hard work in putting these webinars on for all of us. I look forward to each and every one of them, because without fail, I leave with new ideas and action items that I can implement to improve our business. And as a marketer, call me biased, but I'm particularly excited about today's topic. So thank you to Valerie and Adam for taking time out of your day to share your insight and wisdom with us. For those of you who join us on a regular basis, as Dottie and Patricia were saying, the theme of this season of the Lunch in the Know series has been all about what's next. And it's not so much about predicting the future, but about how to press forward in this world of uncertainty. And that can be really scary for a small business. And one thing every small business needs is a good relationship with a strong banking partner to help navigate through this minefield of constant disruption we've been experiencing over the last couple of years, and that doesn't seem to want to let up. We hope that you will all consider Independent Bank to be that trusted partner for you, and know that you don't have to bank with us to ask questions or seek advice, but of course we'd love to explore developing a deeper relationship with you if it makes sense. So thank you all for being here today and indulging me for a couple of minutes. I hope you enjoyed today's webinar. And Dottie, I think I'm supposed to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Catherine. And again, thank you and everyone at Independent Bank, for without you, we would not be able to do what we do now. As Patricia said, and we've talked about what the Small Business Council has done through the past year and almost a year and a half, we would not have been able to do it without the brain trust of what we call our think tank. We have tapped about 20 small business leaders and owners who've helped us give you the programming this year that you have asked for. Without their thoughts, they're reaching out to their customers and their internal customers at their own companies. We would not have been able to plan for this year the way we have. And with us today, Catherine Gray, thank you very much. You're an integral part of that. And Judy Bell are two of our think tank members. And we thank them for their volunteerism, for meeting with us once a month and helping you get the programs that you want. We're a little bit early, we're running a little early, so I'm going to do this. I am a volunteer to the chamber, like many of you are, but without my joined at the hip partner as co-chair of the Small Business Council, Patricia McKinney, we would not have done what we have done this year. For those of you who have never volunteered and been able to work with a professional like I have with Patricia this year, I've got to tell you, it's been an absolute joy. Patricia, I'm going to turn this back over to you.
Thank you, Dottie, so much. And likewise, we are indeed joined at the hip. Now we're going to talk about what we're here today. We're talking about marketing and what's next. So now our panelists are up, and I'm going to have the pleasure of introducing them right now. We have Valerie Morris, who is president and CEO of Morris Marketing Group. She's an award-winning executive that has delivered results to corporations, small to large businesses, nonprofit organizations, and high-profile individuals for over 20 years. Valerie thrives on providing senior-level marketing, communications, public relations, crisis communications, and business operation strategy to companies and organizations of all sizes. Among her recognitions are Hermes Creative Awards, Vox, and Marcom Awards. In addition, Valerie has been a philanthropist and community volunteer for 25 years. And now Adam Heitzman. Adam is a co-founder and managing partner of HigherVisibility. Having worked as a marketing executive in the financial industry, Adam now uses his 15 years of internet marketing and experience to provide outstanding online marketing services that deliver real results to clients across the country. Among Adam's recognitions are CEO Agency of the Year, that's 2020 Search Engine Land, Best CEO Agency, 2020 US Search Awards, Inc. 500, Google Premier Partner Agency, and Best Construction Website, 2019 Web Awards winner. Adam and Valerie, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for everyone that's joining us today. So what's next? There you go. Go ahead, Adam.
See it, Valerie?
I can see it.
All right, perfect. I'll let you lead the way.
Oh, lucky me. Okay. Well, I'm glad everyone's joining us today. I hope you have a bite in front of you, and I hope you take away something that's going to be informational to you, as well as something that you can practically put into practice right away. So let's move on to what's next in marketing. We'll go past our bios, I guess. All right, so as many of you all know, over the last 2 years, or almost 2 years now, the pandemic's been going along. So in 2020, the world really gained 93 million new mobile phone users. And that's 93 million more potential individuals that are looking for your brand online, or that you have the opportunity to market to, or they're trying to stay in touch with their employees and their loved ones. So it's really important that we understand that the mobile phone, the data devices, or everyone is out there really looking and searching and being busy on our different types of devices. So the new normal, as many of you probably are doing today, because I know that we are in my own office, we do a little bit of hoteling. So we both all work from home sometimes. We work in shared spaces at the office sometimes. And maybe if you maybe you all have, I know I have from time to time, I've gotten what I call digifrensia, where I'm just so much information that's overloaded that I am getting text message, emails, telephone calls, Zombie. I'm turned into a zombie like we're doing today. We're all zombies ready in time for Halloween, you know? So how about Adam? Are you a little zombied out?
Absolutely. I feel like at this point, just seeing people in person is highly encouraged at this point. I'm kind of zoomed out for the most part, and I'm sure a lot of people are.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's getting back to a little bit of a little bit of normalcy. I know that we're doing a little bit more in-person meetings now that people are getting a little more comfortable. So I think that's really important to take into account that some people are still wanting to have that distance, and then others are really ready to get back and get to that social atmosphere and to be able to talk in person. So if you have a little digifrensia, just remember it's extremely important to differentiate yourself from other activities, because people are really tired of some of the digital and the data. That, it's nice to pick up the phone and call someone from time to time. So be hyper relevant to your employees and to your consumers. So trends, should we incorporate them into our plans or not? The questions I think that were sent out to many of you all before is it relevant? And be honest, is it really relevant? Will it solve a problem? Do we or will we have the infrastructure or resources in place to either implement the new trend? If the answer to any of these questions is no, not really, then I say pass on the trend. And
yeah,
I think
sorry,
Adam
go ahead.
would too. No, that's what Adam
Yeah,
would too.
no, and I think you're spot on there too, Valerie. I think the thing that often, at least I can speak on behalf of myself, like, oftentimes I'll see someone talking about something new in marketing or that might be really cool or interesting to try. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the infrastructure or internal resource to actually execute on it and spend the time to actually do it right, then it's probably not worth the investment in it at that point. And so, that just kind of food for thought for as we kind of go through some of these trends for later on.
Yeah, something, for example, that right now is hot, TikTok. Well, you have to spend a lot of time doing videos. And if you don't have the time, the infrastructure to be able to do those cute videos, then maybe it's not the right trend for you today.
And Valerie, is that right, that you're going to do a little TikTok dance for us at the end of this?
Sure, you got it. All right, so let's talk about some of the major trends and when we talk about marketing, it's not only marketing to just consumers. We need to really think about internal communications. Many of you all have employees from 5 employees to 105 employees or even more. So it's really important to understand that now with the labor shortage and the folks that are looking for new jobs or wanting to stay at home, that your greatest asset is your employees, that you need to show that you care, get them engaged. Maybe if they're still in all different locations, make that time to do that video chat with them individually and not just always as a group, because sometimes individuals don't feel like that they're heard because they're always on these group calls. So ask how they're doing, get to know them a little bit on a personal level, because if you do, your employees can become one of your greatest ambassadors for your brand, for you, as an employee engagement activity. It's something that I really thrive on and think it's really important that companies take internal communications into a real strategy as part of their branding and marketing opportunities. So external communications and PR influencers, we see a lot of email marketing right now and text messaging. That's a great way to market to folks. But we're also seeing in social media, and we work with several of them that are considered influencers. They're actual paid influencers. And what that is it's a strategy where someone that has a very large following on social media, that they go and look at a certain product and they are paid then to endorse it and then to push it out on their channels that they may have 50, 60, 70, a million followers. and they built that trust with those 1 million followers or 30,000 followers. So when they decide to endorse a product, many of those followers believe them, and then that is a way to also sell their product or to build the trust with that product through different influencers. We're seeing a lot of shifts of that paid influencer position right now. It's always great to have it organically, but that's just kind of where it's been going lately, is that the brands want to get out in front of a whole lot more people a whole lot faster, I guess because of the algorithms and the way the data is moving around today. And I'm going to let Adam speak a little more about how that works. But it appears that with Facebook and Instagram and all the geo-targeting, that it's really those followers that are really, really important. So then with traditional PR and media communications, we always have it's still viable, but it's harder to get out there today. There's not that many great, happy, wonderful stories that are being told. And when we do engage the media and they are able to do a story for us, and we get those impressions that are organic, I encourage you to push them out every way you possibly can on a multi-channel approach, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on your social media pages, and make sure you put it on your website. And I think Adam can talk more about that because it'll increase the SEO for them, the more content that they have. So it's really important to get that content marketing, blogs, information, give value, and build trust through those third-party endorsements.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will speak to both of those two components a little bit later on.
Let's talk about community focus. Social impact can really help boost your brand, the brand value, gain you some publicity, drive some e-commerce growth, and even engage your employees to maximize the business returns on your social impact initiatives. So what I've been reading about recently is, and this is from Nielsen, that 56% of consumers are willing to pay more for products from brands that demonstrate a commitment to actual social value. And then also 80% of Americans are likely to switch brands if they're tied to a nonprofit or a charity that means something to them. The brands perceived as having a high value, a positive impact on people's lives, have really grown their people's brand value like 2.5 times or more than a low perceived brand value. For example, if you have a core objective like publicity, you may want to partner up with a nonprofit with thousands and thousands of social media followers. On the other hand, if you're looking for engaging your employees, maybe it's engaging with a nonprofit partner that has a great volunteer program. Maybe that's the better fit. So it's really about how do you turn that social purpose into some impact. And technology has made it a lot easier. It's giving us more and more time to focus on the important things in life. So whether it's your health, your relationships, your growth, and your purpose. And I know we've seen that the millennials and the Gen Zs are more conscious than ever trying to align themselves with brands and causes that truly reflect who they are and their values. So I would say to you that one of the trends is look at how you can be involved in the community or within some social impact with your brand and your mission and your purpose and your vision to see how we can work with that to encourage those consumers, those employees to continue to be engaged with you. Communication, it's highly targeted. Marketing has moved, as you all know. It used to be a broadcast push, throw it out to everyone. And again, Adam's going to get really deep into this piece of it much greater in depth. But now it's become more one-on-one. You really want to build that relationship with individuals. The key is relevancy, building the trust. It's something that you want to see. It's something you want to learn about. And marketers are talking directly to people more and more through their devices. Sometimes you'll see, you'll click on barbecue and all of a sudden you're getting 100 barbecue ads, or you'll see something about wanting to run a race like 5K, and then you'll get pushed out to 5K. So the highly targeted marketing is very strategic and something that Adam and his company does really, really well. So I want to share that he's going to go into that much more in more depth. But social media, websites, commercials, they're all getting pushed out to you because Big Brother's out there watching. They're watching what your behaviors are. They're watching what you like, what you don't like. And it's how we have to really look at marketing today, because if it's irrelevant to me, I'm going delete, 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 delete as soon as I walk in and see all those emails or those text messages or even the ads that get pushed out to me.
Yeah, it's definitely personalization is the key nowadays. So obviously the core focus of and where I can kind of add some of my value is more on the digital marketing side. So, you know, what I want to do is kind of just go through some of the trends that we're seeing as a whole, and maybe give some insight into some of those trends. One of the first things that we're looking at is that virtually the #1 ranking factor in Google is user intent. If you're not overly familiar with that, it's basically making sure or attempting to make sure that your content matches what a consumer or a person would actually be searching for when they Google something. The worst mistake you can make is trying to create a page or have a page on your website that is not in line with a particular query. Here's a great example that you see here, and I'll just kind of give some context. So if in this example, if I were to want to rank for video conferencing software because my business was offered this type of solution, I couldn't just rank my homepage. I couldn't rank an interior page, like what my service page around my video conferencing solution. And the reason for that is if you look at the results, at the top ranking results in Google for this, you need to have content that matches what people are searching for. If I were to search for video conferencing software as a consumer, what would you be searching for? Most people are probably going to want to see a list of various types of software so that they can compare and contrast different software out there. And so if I am just talking about myself and I'm the only solution on my page to rank for this, I'm probably not going to perform very well for this, because if you look at the results here, it says best video conferencing software. And so this is a comparison of sorts. The one in yellow is the 30 best. Then the next one is the best video conferencing software. It's also a list-based article. So the consumer would be looking in this situation for a list of various providers. And so in order for you to have the opportunity to compete for this, you too would need to have a page that is a list of various video conferencing software. And you can be among those, but if you don't match the intent in this particular case, you would never have an opportunity to compete. And so Google's getting smarter and smarter and has no interest in ranking pages that people don't want. So knowing the target keyword isn't enough anymore. Knowing what keywords people are going to search for isn't going to cut it. That's what you used to be able to do that, years ago. But now you have to really make sure that you're optimizing for search intent, or you're going to get left behind. Here's another example of that. So if I were a business, and let's say I was a drop shipping business, right? And someone typed in how to drop ship. Well, in this example, they're giving you a step-by-step guide. And so you have to make sure that you're matching that intent, whether it's an article or it is more of a service-oriented page. You're going to have to, the best way to look at that a lot of times is just Google the primary keywords that you want to rank for and see what types of pages are ranking on that, and make sure that your pages align there. When you think about user intent, some of the things that you can look at when you're kind of defining whether or not this is going to work is, are users looking for this information? Do they want to make a purchase, or do they want to find an extensive guide? So if it were a transactional term, where let's just say it were something like buy Nike shoes, that's transactional. When someone's going to make a purchase there, so you want to send them. The page that's going to have the best opportunity to rank there is going to be your actual shopping oriented page. Whereas if I were asking a question about running shoes in theory, you're probably going to find more of a guide, an extensive guide. And so having an article that matches both types of users when they're going through that decision-making process is vital. The second trend that we're seeing, particularly on the SEO side, is that you really need to look at opportunities to incorporate structured data and optimize for SERP features. If you've ever Googled something, you now are seeing, not only are you seeing ads, sometimes you're seeing little shopping results at the top of the page. Sometimes you're seeing a map with local listings underneath it. Sometimes you're seeing star ratings. So all these different components are what they call SERP features. And SERP stands for Search Engine Results Page. And so there are ways to ensure that your business can show up on all these various types of features. And so the more that you can continue to optimize and structure your pages to show up in these various features, the better opportunity you have to compete and increasing the amount of clicks coming to your particular pages. So data-driven marketing, it's not a new concept, but it is a key trend, right? The most successful marketers scrutinize their data in order to better serve their customers. And so businesses are acquiring more data than ever before. And that gives you access to an incredible amount of consumer insights that can be used to direct your strategies. It's already at your fingertips. If you have the right systems and you have, the right staff or infrastructure to interpret that data. And so one suggestion would be to analyze, actually one of the biggest skill sets nowadays is, and one of the most sought after skill sets now is being able to analyze marketing metrics and data and see how can I apply that data to my go-to market strategy. And so when you think about data-driven marketing, here's some of those things that marketing data can tell you. It can tell you how much website your traffic gets, or what pages they go to, what products sell better than others, how effective certain marketing campaigns are versus others. And so in that instance, you're going to want to shift your marketing dollars to ones that are generating a higher ROI than maybe some that aren't. What types of customers are you retaining and which ones aren't? Maybe you can shift your marketing towards those types of audiences. And so there's just so much that you can do by looking at the data that you have, in a lot of cases already capturing, and see how can you apply that to your target market.
One thing, I'm going to jump in for just a second. The other thing is we do a lot of email marketing and a lot of newsletter content for many of our customers and our clients, and really look at the data when they open it and when they don't open it, who subscribes and who unsubscribes, because maybe you're sending too much information to them. They don't want that many emails. They don't want that much information. Or maybe you look at what time is the best for the open rate, because then we learned that there's, for like our medical companies, it's first thing in the morning, and then I've seen more of our consumer-based product ones is later in the evening when people are looking at it. So that's something really to kind of look at is do a test to see what really is the best data for your return on your investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Continuing on, UX, user experience, is becoming a ranking factor, but that doesn't mean you necessarily need a brand new website, and that's a common misconception. There's a lot of things that you can do to improve the user experience of your website. One of those is user testing. It allows us to learn where things have gone wrong, so we're not making the same mistakes over and over again. A typical flaw of businesses is that they have objectives that they want to achieve, but they don't consider what impact that will have on the consumer. And so there's a balance between representing both the stakeholder and the user's needs. And so the less resistance that you can add to the user experience regardless of whatever platform you're on, whether it's an app, whether it's your website, whether it's in-store. The easier it is to use, the more intuitive, then the higher probability it is that your website will convert, whether that's an inquiry or a sale. And so if you're happy with your current website design, but you want to increase engagement, then our advice would be to review the experiences of certain areas and make ad hoc changes to those sections. One great way, there's a bunch of different tools and solutions out there, but one pretty inexpensive tool we use quite often for a lot of our clients is called Hotjar. You can sign up, you can apply this to your website. And the cool thing about it is that you can do user recordings. You can actually see people that have visited your website and where they moved their mouse, what pages they went to, where they dropped off. You could see how far down the page they scrolled. And so you start getting some information to be able to say, okay, how engaging is this? You also can ask, one of the great things that we do for, especially on some of our e-commerce related clients or even service-based businesses, is that we can put in create an exit poll. So when a client or a customer is getting ready to possibly leave a page, we just do a quick pop-up and say, hey, if you didn't make a purchase today, or if you didn't contact us today, what was it that stopped you? And you just leave it open-ended, and you allow the consumer to provide a response to you. And over time, you let that data, you want to capture as much of that as you possibly can. You don't want to make a decision off of 5-10 responses, but as you start getting 50 to 100 responses, you can start finding some commonalities and use those commonalities to create action items on things that you can improve strategically about the user experience of your website. Valerie alluded to this a little bit earlier, and that's content marketing. Obviously, I'm speaking to it from an SEO perspective, but even content marketing is highly valuable from a social media perspective as well. When we're talking about SEO, first off, content marketing is a type of marketing that involves the creation of creating and then sharing online material, whether that's a video, blog, social media posts. It doesn't explicitly promote a brand. It's not supposed to be self-promoting. It's actually supposed to stimulate the interest in its products or services. And so when you think about this, it's becoming a huge component of how people are searching. So when you take a step back and you think about your target audience, what are some of the pain points that maybe your audience is suffering from, right? And what are some of the things that they would be looking for to try to solve that pain, right? And showing up at those different variations through that customer journey, that's the beauty of content marketing, because you're able to maybe create guides or how-to articles to help solve a problem, and then strategically introduce your product or service within inside of that. And that is how a lot of businesses, especially nowadays, are generating a great deal of their sales and or leads. And so content marketing has grown in terms of it's one of the biggest factors or biggest marketing trends nowadays. And there's a bunch of reasons why. It costs 62% less than outbound marketing and generates on average 3 times as many leads. The costs are pretty low as long as you kind of do some preliminary research in the front end, because it's all about just creating content and then pushing it out. And small businesses that with blogs generate 126% more leads than those without. And so lastly, it also generates 6 times higher conversion than other metrics. So there's a lot of use cases for developing content on a consistent basis. And if you're not already doing so, then there's a low barrier to entry there.
And I would agree 110%, because I think it's really important to write those blogs. You're experts in your own industries, and that's what people are looking for, is that trust and that loyalty. So when they learn something from you, then it helps build trust and your value proposition for your actual product. They could be anything from a nonprofit charity talking about heart disease to a product of Nike shoes to a service-driven data information officer type of information. It's really where it's all going today, and that's why content marketing is crucial.
Yeah, and I think the biggest mistake that I think a lot of small businesses make in this area is really the fact that when they're creating content, they're doing so always thinking about themselves and being self-promoting, where it needs to be flip-flopped. You have to think about the consumer, and you have to think about how can I help them, solve their pain, help them solve their basically provide a solution to them. And so creating content that helps from that standpoint, and then you strategically introduce your product as a value add versus it being solely about your brand. And so that's kind of how you kind of need to execute on that.
And I know what you're all thinking. I'm a small business. I don't have time to write these blogs. I don't have time to do this, but it will pay you forward. Take the time to do those types of things and do a strategic content calendar. Do one a month if that's where you first start, or work with someone that can help you do that writing and that information, because it really will come back to you.
One of the next trends is chatbots. They enable brands to engage in conversations with their customers to create a better customer relationship and actually drive more sales. More and more, you're probably seeing more and more about AI. Businesses have discovered the ease and efficiency of chatbots when it comes to consumer products. It's actually becoming some of the future of how people are interacting with businesses. When you think about yourself, I mean, there's a lot of things that most people, if you're anything like myself, when I go to a website, the last thing I want to do is actually pick up the phone and actually have to call into them. And so if there's a way that I can actually communicate and have a quick response, then that's a better customer experience, even as a service-based business. And so, most customers prefer doing it that way. And so regarding chatbots, 80% of sales and marketing leaders say they already use it and are planning to do so. So that trend is only going to continue to increase. And what you're seeing over here is an example of one in particular. It's called Drift. If you're not familiar with Drift, it's an awesome chatbot solution. There's more of them out there. But the cool thing behind this particular instance is that you're basically able to craft on the back end when you're setting Drift up to ask specific questions on the front end. And by them selecting specific answers, you can lead them and funnel them all the way down to making a purchase or submitting a lead inquiry. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do nowadays that don't require your consumers to necessarily have to pick up the phone and give you a call. And so, I would highly recommend looking into that and capturing it, more of the audience that you might be missing out on already. Anybody that's doing paid search and or SEO, I mean, for a long time, those have always been separate disciplines. But there's been a big effort across the industry that, and we're seeing more and more of it, that you need to combine and converge those two disciplines. And so, whether you're working with an agency or you're doing it yourself, or you have multiple people, someone doing one or the other, having those work more collaboratively is vital. The way you think about it too is one great example of this is, paid search is great because I can literally set up an ad and get it running and start getting traffic for that ad on Google in an hour. And the great thing behind that is that I'm able to understand and get keyword level data of what keywords are actually driving people to my site, and actually getting them to convert or pick up the phone and call or purchase or fill out a form. And once you understand what those keywords are that are converting and leading to inquiries or sales, you can then leverage that information to then do SEO and say, okay, now that I know these keywords are converting for me, let's take that data and let's optimize our website to focus in on these terms so that you're not always having to continuously pay for that. And so even if it's from a short-term perspective, paid is highly valuable from that regard. The other trend, and a lot of you may have seen this, voice search, remains hyped. A lot of people talk about it. People want to talk about it because it's the next thing, but honestly, it will deliver very little for most businesses. A lot of predictions were made when this was coming out that by 2020, 50% of all searches will be voice searches. Well, we're in 2021 and it's not anywhere close. And so, going back to what we were saying before, there are some trends that are trends that you want to look at and that might be beneficial for your business. And then there's other trends that you're going to hear about that really aren't going to drive that value. And so this is one of those examples. And so I would just be cautious if you're being told one way or the other. It's, for the most part, from what we've seen with our client base, it has delivered very little for most businesses. So now we want to hop into, I'll send this over to Valerie. If you want to talk a little bit about kind of how to develop our annual marketing plan.
That's one of the things that I would strongly recommend, that you're going into the fourth quarter now, obviously. And so you need to plan your work and work your plan. So what is it you're looking to try and achieve or do differently for 2022? So start an annual marketing plan by reviewing last year's numbers and last year's marketing performance. And here's just a few things like, did you get the results that you really wanted? Did you not grow, or did you grow the sales you wanted? And do you want to grow the sales by X% even greater? So what were the activities that were effective? Which ones were not effective, for example? And then should you reallocate resources? Sometimes we've spent way too much funds and money on a specific piece of the marketing plan and realize that it didn't get the return on investment. So maybe we want to change that and do something different this year to see where we can truly help it grow. And then conduct a real situational analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? What are your threats? Are there going to be new companies coming in your space? And what are they going to be offering, or what are they going to be doing that may be different or differentiating from you? And how can you keep up with that? The new trend, as they say. Conduct a basic SWOT. Just really do that analysis. Get deep and dirty. Really think hard about it. And then define your target audience. Your company has, buyer personas. That means you just maybe have to, reinvent or revamp or make even greater your audience and your personas and who you are and what you want to be. And social impact plays a big factor in that right now with many of our consumers that we're seeing, is that they like to align with someone that is giving back to their community, or through their employees and through engagement. And they're right smart. Go ahead.
And on that front, Valerie, there are several. I mean, you can, if you haven't done so, I would encourage any business to create buyer personas for their target audiences, because it allows you to really hone in on the types of customers that you actually have. And let's say it's women ages 30 to 50, right? They're going to have certain requirements. They're going to have certain pain points that they're coming against versus men 40 to 60, right? And there's a lot more stages when you're creating your buyer persona, but the key behind that is understanding kind of what are they trying to solve, what are their pain points, and you can leverage that information to then do what we had talked about before, personalized marketing, right? And so whether that's through content marketing or through social media, once you know your buyer personas and you've really honed in on them, you can do so much with that. If you're doing paid advertising, or doing paid social advertising. You can get so granular with your targeting that you can specifically target people of a certain demographic, a certain age, certain interests. What websites do these audiences typically visit? And you can use all that information to make sure that you're hitting those people at that certain point. And so that's why I think buyer personas is an often underutilized strategy that is highly, highly valuable.
I 100% agree. We just recently launched a water product, and we found out when we started really doing our focus groups and who was buying and who was purchasing, that we know that there are women between 30 and 50, and hydration and fitness is important to them. So and helped us craft our messages and our marketing messages and our content on hydration. Why is that important? And rather than just selling a product. So I think that's really important, that you do know who your buyers are and build those personas and speak to them very, very clearly, because then you will get a return on the investment if you really do know who your buyers are. And then write your SMART goals. I mean, what's specific, it's what's measurable, what's attainable, what's relevant, and what's time bound. This means that all your goals should be specific and include a time frame. We all have goals, and should it be a first quarter plan, a second quarter plan, and then you readjust as you go, so you can make your plans and make your goals and make your strategic, as most people are all financially driven, they want to make that bottom line. So what is that number that you need to make, and how are you going to get there? And that's what's really, really important. And then, as Adam says, analyze your tactics. Make sure you're achieving your goals by all the different multi-channel approaches. It's not just one thing, it's multi-channel. You can't just throw money against, social media. Maybe that's not where it's going to be completely relevant for you. So maybe people aren't on social media who are your customers. I mean, I can't imagine that, someone that's doing gigantic elevator sales is really going to be on social media. So how do you contact those people? Maybe it's more through LinkedIn, or maybe it's more through a different B2B strategy. So look at those and make sure that you're hitting the right channels for what that marketing.
And that's a great point. The B2B side, particularly if you're a B2B business, typically social media is probably not your go-to strategy. It doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities there. It just means that, most people, when they're going on social media platforms, they're doing so to, connect with, their own individual friends, their other audiences. They're not there necessarily from a B2B perspective, whereas a B2C approach makes a whole lot more sense on a social media play. And so, understanding your tactics, and again, it goes back to the buyer personas, understanding your audience.
Absolutely. Set your budget. I mean, we'll all tell you, every marketer will tell you, you have to have a budget. It's you hope to do it all organically, but I think that they're in today's world, and I hate to use the words you got to pay to play, but in some respects, you do have to spend some money to get that return on the investment.
Now,
questions, anyone?
We do have a couple of questions. Thank you all both. That was fascinating. And we've also had a chat, Patricia and I have, how wonderful this is. And it went so fast. They're asking if they're going to have information to get later. I have a couple of questions for both of you. I'm going to start with the easy one. Easy one. You both mentioned email. And I think all of us think, when do I send an email out? When do I send one out? What's the best time if I send an email out to my customers, to my staff, whatever, that people are really going to open it and they're going to see it?
Yeah, well, I that's going to differ for every business, and Valerie may have her own point. Every business,
I think you're right,
different, and their audiences are going to be different. So if you're missing out a little bit if you're just sending it directly out of your own Gmail account or your own business email address, I would recommend using a third-party email service, whether that's a MailChimp or something along those lines, Constant Contact. The great thing about those, again, is going back and looking at your audience list, and when you are sending that out, they will provide you analytics data, and so you can easily log in there and see what are the best open rates. They pretty much tell you that for your audience, and what are the best days to be sending them. There are naturally industry standards too that you could look up. A lot of times, depending on what type of business you're in, that will also change. So just to give some context, if I were an e-commerce business, it's typically there. Most people say Monday morning, right? Because they've had all weekend, and they've had all weekend to think about all this stuff, and they get there in front of their computer on Monday morning, and it's sitting there. Whereas if I'm other types of businesses, it would be, you know, later in the week or different times of the day. And so you really have to kind of, again, go back to the buyer persona, think about who they are. Like if I were trying to hit, you know, working moms, I'm not going to try to send an email to them during the middle of the day. I'm going to focus on maybe, you know, 7, 8 o'clock at night. And so you just have to kind of know your audience and use the data that you have by using one of those third-party platforms to kind of do so.
And I would agree. We won't normally do anything unless it is through a third party, because we want that analytics, we want that data. We measure it, we report it, we share with our clients what's best, what's not. And just like Adam said, for example, if you're a travel agency, maybe it's on Saturday or Sunday when you're sending out that email, because they're going to be people searching for their next vacation. So you just really need to know who you're speaking to. I mean, because we send them out all different times, in the mornings, in the evenings, in the afternoons, but we measure that and to see what the open rates are. And sometimes we'll change it up. 1 week it's this way and 1 week it's the next, because sometimes you hit different people and what they're interested in.
Thank you. And one more quick one, then I know Patricia's got a couple. You both have mentioned budget. Most of our small businesses we're watching that bottom line just as closely as we can. Is there a general either percentage of profit or bottom line that we need to just bite the bullet and say, this is going to be my marketing budget? Oh, I didn't mean to catch you both flip. Adam?
It's kind of a difficult question to easily answer. I mean, it's obvious. It's always going to change. It's going to change on a couple of different things, right? Because, for example, you need to understand what is my average customer worth to me, and what is the cost to acquire that customer, and so you can back into it, but there's no preset answer that I could say, hey, it's 10% of your annual revenue is this, because it's going to be different for every business based upon what is your average. If it's an e-commerce business, what's your average sale? What is your conversion rate? There's a lot of factors that go into it that you could back into it. But I wouldn't say that there's a hard and fast specific answer to that question.
I would also say it's part of what is the goal of the company? For example, if it's a medical office, which you're trying to get new patients, what is that conversion rate? Will that patient be long-term for you, or is it a short-term? So yeah. Again, there's no way it's the conversion on, I want 20 new patients this month, because I know they'll grow into a long-term relationship with them. So they may be willing to pay higher for those 20 new patients, and knowing that in the long run, they're going to keep a very
lifetime
value. So
yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, all those come into play, and so I think the key that I would do is I think that you can back into it, right? Ultimately, you know, if you're planning ahead and saying, okay, this is how many customers I have now, this is where I want to get to, this is the average, you know, value or ROI of a customer, or this is the average lifetime value of a customer. You can easily back into that and say, okay, now that I know this, what does it cost to acquire a customer? And if I know that, I can easily back into that number. And so that's going to be different for every single business based upon what a value of a customer truly is. So it's not an easy answer to just say, oh, it's X.
Thank you. A question popped up in the chat. Michael Detroit from Playhouse on the Square. In answer to your research question, there's a research department at the chamber that is there for you to use. If you can reach out to Patricia, she'll give you a name. And there is valuable research that as a chamber member that you can have at your fingertips. We did have another question, both to Valerie and Adam, for a small business under 2 million in sales. What's a good range for a marketing budget? And you just answered that question at length. So thank you very much. And Tracy, I think that's going to be, it depends, it depends, it depends, it depends. So feel free to reach out to Adam or Valerie and they can help you with that.
100%. Yeah. And if you're curious about your own individual business, again, Valerie or myself, please feel free to reach out to us and we could sit down and kind of ask some of those questions that we just went over and kind of give you a better sense of what a realistic budget really should be for your business based off of those questions.
Thank you. Patricia, you got a question?
Yes. So how long should you wait to test the effectiveness of your campaign? As small business owners, you really want to see, is this campaign working? When is that sweet spot?
Well,
you need on, again, your goal. I mean, are you trying to move tickets tomorrow, or are you trying to build a long-term customer?
Well, and I think there's a key right there. The key is, do you have enough data, right? It has to be statistically relevant data. I don't want to make a decision for the course of my business over theoretically 5 responses or 5 sales. I need more data so that I can make more qualified decisions. So naturally, the question is, the longer you can wait, the better off you are because you can gather more data. But at the very least, you need to be able to say, you need to be able to have enough of an audience to be able to make qualified decisions and not have it be skewed over such a small audience.
Gotcha. And one more question. I think, Valerie, you mentioned the importance of community engagement. So for a small business owner who has not really found their heartbeat and what they really want to jump into, how should they start that process? Should they get input from their team? What does that look like?
When I consult with some companies about social impact, it's twofold. Well, sometimes it's the owner's passion project, or sometimes it's about engaging the employees and finding out what's important to them so that you can engage the entire workforce. Or it could be a blend of both. I think that there's many opportunities out there. Memphis is one of the most philanthropic and engaged volunteer cities I've ever lived in and been in for the last 30 years. So I think if you want to get involved, it's a matter of finding something that's truly passionate for you, or it has some social impact for your business. For example, if you're, I'm going to use the water company that we're doing, they're plastic water bottles. Well, they, as a company, has decided to go into ocean rescue and conservation, because that's what's important to them. Or if you're a paper company, maybe it's planting more trees and conservation. So I think you really need to look at, how do you get engaged and how do you do something that's meaningful? Consumers are very smart. If they think you're doing it just for a sale, they're not going to buy in. You have to do it for the right reasons, the right purpose, and the right missions and the visions. And it could be your own personal passion projects, or it could be what your employees are really engaged about. I know when I was, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, obviously we don't do as much of that, but, I think the key there is, again, as much as you can, if we're trying to go back to the theme, it's around personalization to some extent, right? So if you can make your connection with that nonprofit relevant to your business in some way, to the examples that you just provided, I think that holds a ton of value, because then you can tell a unique story to your audience.
Great.
Absolutely. And that gives you great content to put on your blogs and give you great content that's your trusted source, and that you care about your community, you care about giving back to the community. So I think that's really important.
Great.
Right,
Thank you both.
you.
Patricia, let me pop in real quickly here.
Sure.
Thank you again, Valerie and Adam. This is fascinating. Patricia, I want everybody to be aware of a few things that are coming up for the Small Business Council. And just joining us is our speaker for November the 16th, Susan Stevenson from Independent Bank. What's next? Leaning forward. And we have answered the call for many of you on another strategic networking session with Janet Cardona on November the 11th. And just a little bit of a teaser, as we will close out the year in December, on December the 2nd, answering the call from our think tank. This was an Olympic year. And what is more parallel to the path of an entrepreneur's success and a small business success than that of an Olympian. We don't win every time. We don't lose every time. We fall down and we get back up. And our keynote speaker will be Dr. Rochelle Stevens. For those of you who don't know, our gold medalist from Memphis. We hope to have several other Olympians join us for that meeting. One quick bit of, I'm going to post this for everyone. Patricia, I'm going to post the link if you can tell everyone about the link to the survey for Dr. Don Fisher.
Yeah,
And-
Dr. Don Fisher is on this call, and he is the head of our quality control center that's right here in the chamber. And what he wants to do is find out what small businesses need, what type of training would be valuable for you. So that Dottie is posting will be a way for him to gauge that. So not only will it be in this post, but in our follow-up to you, we'll also include that link as well. So please feel free to take that survey so he will know, and that's a way that you all can be serviced as small business owners.
Thank you very much. We're going to give you all 1 minute back of your day. Enjoy your weekend. Again, Adam and Valerie, thank you for this very, very valuable meeting. It was phenomenal. Everyone
Thank
take
you both.
care, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you
Thank
all. Have a
you.
great
Thanks
day.
all.
Bye, y'all.